Hey, this is Max Alper, aka Parrotsky, and you are listening to Group Critique Fight Club. All right. You guys have been listening to Duval Timothy. This wonderful LP came out last year titled Sanam. Really wonderful stuff. And welcome to our on-air guest of honor for this month's monthly project presentation live stream. We have the one and only coming in from, as you described to me, Joseph, the wilderness, Tennessee. Coming in from the wilderness, Tennessee, we have the wonderful, illustrious guitarist, composer, performer, and true Appalachian, Joseph Allred. Give it up, everybody. Joseph, how are you, man?
I'm not too bad.
Not too bad. I think you and I met for the first time in person quite recently, playing a show together in West Nashville at what was the name of the spot again? You remember?
Yeah, random sample.
Random Sample. Random Sample. Shout out to Andy. Lovely, lovely spot. Wonderful spot. But it was the first time that I had the pleasure of seeing you perform live, and you performed on a 12 string and as I recall, a homemade guitar that you made while at a workshop, correct?
Mhm.
And you weren't sure. It was the first time you'd ever really taken it out in public, and you weren't sure how of quality it would be, but it sure. I thought it delivered. Did it meet your standards?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm, yeah. How many? I mean, let's just get right into it because I want to listen to the music that was submitted, but I have so many thoughts and questions. I mean, your type of guitar playing has been we don't want to, I don't like saying American primitivism or even bluegrass. I think that they're kind of reductive terms that are used retroactively by critics and whatnot. But I'm curious where, in from a perspective of being a guitarist first and foremost, your influences came about. Were they self-taught? Were you who were you listening to primarily that cultivated your sound?
Um, I was kind of a metal head.
Oh yeah.
I bothered my parents until they let me get a guitar when I was 12 or so. So
Uh-huh.
it's all the um, Metallica and like Pantera and Slayer and the kind of stuff you'd see on MTV or Beavis and Butthead, the videos they watch.
True. Yeah, true. You're a true adolescent of the 90s, or at least
Yeah,
pre-adolescent. So, I'm a little bit younger than you, so I only caught that as like a kindergartner.
I was, I guess, right in the perfect age.
For real.
12, 13-year-old Beavis and Butthead is the culmination of.
Incredible.
Hmm. Um, but I it just kind of taught myself how to play guitar. I took piano lessons for a while, starting when I was younger. That my parents kind of made me take piano lessons.
Mm.
I never really did very well at it. I have a little bit of a background, like knowing how to read music and a little bit of the theory stuff, but not very much
Right.
past just taking piano lessons and playing in band in school. Hmm. But I didn't get into the style of guitar playing that you mentioned until um, like maybe 19 or 20 years ago. So I'd already been playing guitar for like a decade at that point.
Hmm,
Back in the aughts when all the new Weird America, it's another kind of bad
exactly.
label
Yeah.
for stuff, but that was really in swing. And I was still playing in bands mostly back then, but I started using open tunings and kind of dug into a lot of old kind of pre-war blues music and folk stuff. And I remembered having a guitar player magazine that had an interview with John Fahey in it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he was still alive then.
Yep, there's one from like the mid '90s, and the cover story on it is a bunch of like post rock stuff, which is another bad label.
We can blame Simon Reynolds, specifically one journalist coining that term, but sure.
Post rock. But that wave of stuff that was like LeBradford and Tortoise and Cul-de-sac that Glenn Jones was in, and that did a collaboration with John Fahey. There's a the cover story of that issue of Guitar Player was on that stuff, on all the post rock kind of stuff, and then there was a separate interview with John Fahey. So there were
Mm,
things in that one issue where people were Glenn uh, Jones talked about his kind of discovery of John Fahey stuff and using open tunings and partial capos. Then there was an interview with John. He talked about meeting Skip James and learning the open D minor tuning from him, and that was one
wow.
of the tunings I found myself in. That was around the first time I wasn't in a band. I kind of
Interesting.
bands for like 10 years. Just the first band I was in played in the uh, gym at the elementary school I went to, and I'm reaching over here. Nobody can see this, but this amp,
Oh, hell yeah. Old 2000s crates.
and it sounds really like a amp a 12-year-old would have, and try to play Metallica covers to it. But anyway, for like 10 years, I was in bands all the time, and then I wasn't in a band all of a sudden, and that's what made me get kind of interested in what all like a single person with a guitar could do.
Sure.
I found my way to John Fahey. I used to use Last.fm a lot in audio stream.
Uh-huh.
It was back like 20 years ago. That was in like real kind of full swing. And you would listen to something and it would make a bunch of suggestions, like other people who listened to that and also listened to this stuff. And I found my way to Robbie Basho and Stephen Basho, Young Ons, and James Blackshaw was
Oh, yeah.
around then. And Jack Rose, I actually saw open for the first time I heard him was he was on tour with Mogwai.
Oh, wow.
He
That's
sound
You're just naming like hit after hit right now. We
it
were
was
definitely listening, getting the same Last FM. It wasn't an algorithm, but we were certainly getting many of the same recommendations.
that's how I kind of got into that stuff. And then I got in a band again and still played um, kind of loud electric guitar, but like in altered tunings, and some of the recordings had acoustic stuff. In 2011, I think is when I made my first recordings on like just for solo guitar and played the first show I ever played. So it's been like 15 years now. I managed to
Wow.
be. I've seen a couple of waves. Maybe there's like a third one going on right now that have kind of come and gone since I've been aware of this stuff, and I managed to just completely avoid benefiting from. I didn't mean to, but they just haven't like lifted me up at all. I'm just sitting here being kind of out of step with all of it. I think I kind of got in between things a little bit and was in a real kind of uh, just a real withdrawn state of my life when I first got into playing this kind of stuff. So I wasn't
Mm,
that interested in trying to get in touch with record
right.
people and tour. I was just making music on my own.
Playing the game, so to speak.
Yeah,
But you're getting come on, come on, man. You touring, you're getting out there. I mean, like hell, like I've had multiple people personally recommended you to me a couple of years ago that was it wasn't I'm grateful at not being an algorithm. Human to human interaction of people knowing what I'm into, and just like you got to check out the young Tennessean holding it down in the open tuning world, for real real American music. I mean, as a fucking suburban kid from Boston, I don't know why I have an over romanticization of much of this music and I latch onto it. And so you had me fanboying out at random sample. And you made the Knicks win, as you recall. That was your doing. The Knicks won the conference final during your set.
So, didn't Wu Tang Clan have something to do with it?
Yes, that's right. Wu-Tang Clan also did the halftime show that time. It was, you heard it here, folks. Wu-Tang Clan and Joseph Allred combined musical energies.
I would definitely collaborate with Wu Tang Clan. I'm
Oh
sure.
my God.
I don't know what on earth that
We're
would
gonna make it happen, dog. Well, I wanted to talk briefly just on I mean, some of the videos you've been posting, I mean, talk about me romanticizing where you're from. I mean, the content, quote unquote, that you have been posting, much of which inspired this prompt is you out in the wilderness in question mark Tennessee, uh, performing with the environment, even in the simplest form of, like, to my ear at least, like hearing water and applying finger strumming in a way as if it is flowing, and it very much reminded me of the quote of, I'm not a huge fan of Pandit Pran Nath, the Kirana style Hindustani vocalist that taught Lamont Young and many of the minimalists, but he said once that, I learned to sing with the river by me as my tambura. So rather than the drone of a pitched instrument, the drone of the stream. And it that quote was very reminiscent in my brain while seeing some of your online performances out on your property or nearby. And I'm just curious if that is something that you're strictly doing for the gram. Do you is this something that you enjoy doing? I mean, I find myself when it's not too hot going outside with the harmonium often, uh without the camera, hiding from the gram. And I'd be curious if you're, if you have your own sort of deep listening sort of practice that's informing this, if you're just an outdoorsy person, what inspires that?
Um, I I probably record too much. I think about that sometimes. That I'm if I go outside, I like intend to record something. I try to keep myself from doing that all the time. So I do go out and just go on walks without having any kind of intention. But when I was really little, I used to be outside all the time, and then I just um, I don't know, got too into watching my brother play video games or like laying around and just being kind of lazy or something. And I didn't for a long time, but I lived in Boston for 6 years from 2016 to 2022. I think
Oh,
that's right.
I had no idea.
Uh, and when I moved back down here from there, I think is when I realized I had just been like holed up inside all the time. And in a city, you can't just go outside without being in somebody's way or without there just being stuff going on all over the place. I felt like that was making me really stay shut in all the time. I get kind of overstimulated by all of that.
For sure.
So when I moved back down here, I my car broke down in the process of moving, and I had to stay in Quincy, Massachusetts, for a couple of days while my car.
Quincy.
And there was some park. Uh, I think there's some park there that's like a has a controversial name. It's like a slur for indigenous women. So I
Oh,
They have it
I don't even know.
around me.
I'm from Newton. I'm from like east or sorry, west of Boston.
Yeah, but
Quincy's south of Boston.
I just walked around a lot while I was waiting for my car to be fixed, and I think that made me realize how often I used to do that. And then when I moved back down here, I just started being outside a whole lot more. And I don't know about uh, a deep listening practice, I guess, like in a broad sense. I think I have one of Pauline Oliveros' books back on the shelf behind me, but I've not read it all that intentionally. I tend to, um, it's another thing about being in Boston that changed my perspective on a lot of stuff is the kind of art world there. I mean, look, where I live, like you probably can tell enough about it to realize that this isn't a place where there are art installations and like a community of MFA students and
Sure.
like people kind of doing all this sort of stuff. It just feels like something that just belongs to a completely different world. And the
Right.
world, Pauline Alveros inhabited the world of Mills College and the experimental kind of music circles and the deep listening center, and it's all these pretty well educated, like more highbrow art kind of stuff. And that, so I don't know, maybe I've kind of ended up doing some of the same things as what goes on in that world a little bit, but I don't like feeling like everything is almost an object of consumption. Like if you're using your listening practice if to like kind of channel into your own artwork, and then you're part of this world that is very everything's just been so commodified and so based on either kind of subsidies for arts communities or like for selling records. There's a whole lot of like kind of money involved in that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. And it seems like that's not you're not just listening for its own sake exactly in that context. It's very easy for something like that to become like really less about listening and more an act of consuming something else.
Absolutely.
And I feel like I'm on the side of power dynamics are kind of complicated. I feel like I'm on the side of the consumer as regards some people. Like I went to Mississippi for the first time last year and plodded around to some of the old blues, like where some of the Delta blues people came from, and very much felt like an obnoxious blues tourist. And realize I've had enough respect for a long time to recognize blues as something that originated, at least in a very, very specific context, during the, age of racist terror mobs running around, the age of lynchings and the Great Depression, Deep South. So in that is like a power dynamic where I'm on the more powerful like side or somebody who is maybe more the consumer, but as it relates to this more cosmopolitan world of Pauline Oliveros and art schools and all this kind of stuff, I feel like people are always, when it comes to Appalachia and probably when it comes to Deep South stuff too, I feel like we're treated like we don't even exist at all. We've been almost commodified completely and just turned into archives and catalogs and things for the consumption of other people.
Yeah.
And I think that like experiencing that, which largely came from living in Boston the first time I ever lived outside of Tennessee, I think it made me realize, it made me kind of experience myself in relation to some other, like another culture and other people. And it maybe like soured my perspective just a little bit on that whole world I used to want to belong to more. I definitely listened to Pauline Oliveros and Henry Flint and Tony Conrad and et cetera, and thought that that was like the real, art world where the real like profound stuff is going on. And I saw a Henry Flint performance. I know his whole thing was like trying to bother that culture of serious art. Like, it came from North
Hmm.
Carolina. He was trying to take this, the hillbilly, kind of exaggerated hillbilly.
Avant-garde hillbilly. Yep.
But that world just swallowed him up. I don't think he subverted anything at all. Like, when I saw him play, everybody was furrowing their brow and like taking it as seriously as anything else. And I thought, did he fail? I love Henry Flint's music. Like if I didn't know a single other thing about him, some of the stuff I would just be really drawn to anyway because it sounds just interesting.
Yeah.
But the more I learn about that side of it, it seems like the more I think that that's just there's too much intentionality involved in that. Maybe that's the problem. The difference,
It's still composition from an academic perspective, right?
or it's something that has to do with people making very conscious decisions to try to do something within this particular context, and it's this very self-referential and kind of restricted, context. And there's a whole lot of like political, when social kind of, people having pretty radical views about things, which is fine. But I think sometimes you can overstate the extent to which things that go on in that world have any effect on the world outside of that. And when I'm sitting here where I live now, I can tell you that Henry Flint just hasn't made it doesn't make any difference at all to people around here. Like they care about, my neighbors care about whether their tractor is running right. Most of their lives are spent taking care of their houses and kind of doing a lot of things that make things function. And I don't know how to do a lot of that. I've spent so much of my life just doing music, and I really recognize that it depends on a lot of other people doing like very much more necessary kind of labor, and anything that doesn't make any connection at all to the kind of people that live out here probably is not as like revolutionary or radical as it's made out to be sometimes.
Right.
So I don't know. I have like I've at least had a foot in this world of academic art, and I appreciate a lot of that stuff. It's definitely influenced me, but I also have a little bit of like kind of not not I don't know, maybe antagonism a little bit, just recognizing a difference between myself and this kind of culture. Mm,
Yeah, I mean I think that's this quest a lot of listeners have for the genuine article. Uh I see this a lot with obviously in hip hop, kind of like since the origins of like gangsta rap. The industry, the labels seeking out like real hood shit, real street shit, for the sake of exploitation,
mm,
but on the same sort of angle of industry exploitation, even down to the most avant-garde Henry Flint, or even like you said, like New Weird America as a new sort of term, or like 2000s terminology, and now with I don't know, ambient country to some extent. I mean, there it's like I can't hate on an artist from a certain place for wanting to tap into more industry money uh for the sake of survival,
yeah,
right? But it seems to me that your interests as an artist lie outside of, like you said, it's just a you got serious about this. You didn't want to be doing the industry game when you had the chance, and now it just doesn't seem of interest to you. But to me, that makes me like you more as a listener. But I'm a big nerd, you know?
mm,
I just wish we lived in a country which like government grants existed. So you could get serious material support for doing what you're doing without having to play games
yeah, that can
with.
happen. There's so many things that need to be taken care of before it gets to that point, and I think that's something we
Oh
need to
yeah.
be honest about. That's like the culture. I think it's not something that is easy or possible to define in like a neat set of necessary and sufficient conditions or something. But to at least a way to think about it is kind of what humans do beyond what is necessary for our survival, and
Mm.
like really develops in like we start to have traditions of philosophy and like classical music and things developing only when civilizations of a certain kind started to develop. And part of what that civilization is something where there's a great deal of inequality and there's like a stratification. Then you have an entire class of professional musicians or sculptors or uh, or painters or something. And in order for there to be a class of people doing that kind of thing, there, have to be people doing a lot of other kind of stuff.
Yep.
And I don't know how to work out all the relationship there. I don't want there to not be a world where there. I think so much of the reason that things seem so ugly now, like in terms of architecture, this horrible like gentrified style of architecture, there's no like joy or beauty or care put into that. It's all like a financial bottom line. That there used to be like an artisan class. There used to be people who wanted to design beautiful buildings and architecture and public spaces. It was for the good of like the public.
Yeah.
There's a concern for beauty, but that has to, again, that what makes something art or what makes something beautiful, I think, is exactly that it goes beyond what is necessary. And even making that guitar that you mentioned earlier, that I had a whole lot of help doing that. I definitely didn't just put that thing together on
Yeah, yeah.
a, a factory and was kind of guided through the process by some people. But there's some things like taking a whole lot of time to very smoothly like shape and sand all the braces. I'm sure no one could hear that a brace has like a sharp edge
Hmm.
in there, and no one may ever see that, but it's something. And like Michelangelo, I remember reading that there are things he tucked away in places, the amount of detail he put into places that nobody will ever see or would ever see or for hundreds of years.
Right.
That's kind of what makes something beautiful. But when you have so many people whose basic needs are not being met, and there's just so much unrest, and our needs, especially, I mean, you have needs like food and water and shelter, and there's so many people whose needs are not being met regarding that, or like healthcare or housing. But just our needs to be like social and cooperative, I think that that's straight from like Marxism 101, is that we're alienated from
Yeah.
that what is a much more natural and much better state where we're not forced into artificial competition to each other, where we're
Hmm.
not seeing everybody as enemies that we have to compete with and trying to dominate or be dominated, exploit or be exploited. And we have just this whole game that is rigged like that.
Yep.
And unless that gets taken care of and there's some more organic society where the parts kind of work together and support each other, I think that's what would be required for there maybe to be like some well regarded and maybe like a professional artisan class, whether it be music or any other kind of art that is actually, kind of respected and taken care of.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the Calvinist work ethic embedded in this country that seems to have a disdain for even a classical artisan class that you're describing because like the only way to like achieve godliness is through like self-sacrifice and punishment and like to enjoy your work being an artist, to enjoy what you do makes it not work. And so there's this national disdain towards what we do. Is that like, well, get a real job, blah, blah, blah. Even if you are making more money than them, it's not a real job, you know? And I feel like that is a deeply American thing that, even in some basic liberal, conservative leaning, right leaning social democracy in the EU, can at least attest to, even Canada, you know, can attest to putting at least some money tucked away to support, materially support artists of a professional caliber. And like you said, it's Marxian science, capital alienates people behaviorally. It detracts from the very cooperative and social nature of who we are. And as much as I want to spend more and more time discussing this with you, and trust me, I really do. Um, we have some music that we got to listen to in relation to performing in the field, which was sparked technically from the discussion we just had was sparked technically from me talking about performing outside in the field. Love how that going from fixing tractors down to what's real work in this country. I love these discussions, man. I live for this shit, Joseph. um Joseph, I just wanted to read off the prompt again so you have it in your ears, before we or at least in your head, before we start. We have four submissions today, so we got a decent chunk, but not going to take up too much of your time. So we're going to listen live. I'm going to play it through the Zoom, and then we'll discuss afterwards. But the prompt again, for everybody listening. I wrote here, the definition of the act of field recording is to capture sound outside of the recording studio. The field could be your kitchen, your backyard, a city street, truly anywhere beyond the controlled and acoustically treated recording environment. The act of field recording is simple, but is by no means passive, even less so if we involve the act of musical performance within the context of the field. It could be a voice memo of your friend playing the guitar at a campfire. It could be an overnight drop rig capturing the activity of nocturnal insects. And it could be a shitty tape recording of your neighbor's bird song captured on a Walkman as you take a walk. What's crucial is to record with intention and illustrate the field for your listener. See, just like Henry Flint, I'm not really, I'm not subverting anything here because I'm talking about doing things with intention. I can't escape my academic background, bro. Um, for this month's project, we are to perform with this site-specific intentionality in mind. You are to pick a space in the field that speaks to you as a performer, one that you could perform in duo with, perhaps, and you are to record 3 to 5 minutes of improvisation within this space using an acoustic recording device, meaning something that uses a microphone to capture vibration in the air and not a DI input. What does it mean to perform in duo with your field? Does it mean toying with the natural reverb of the space? Does it mean to imitate the sound around you in a call and response fashion? Think about this when you decide where to record in the field. Your choice of instrument can be entirely acoustic or electronic, so as long as you have the means of amplifying any electronic signal with some sort of mobile speaker in the field. We need to be able to hear your choice of instrument as well as the space it inhabits at all times. I know that was a mouthful. We recorded in the field. We're calling it field performance, Joseph. Are you ready to get into it?
Yes.
Let me open up my screen. Hold on. And once again, forgot to shout them out at the beginning of the stream, but our live stream is presented by our good friends and supported by our good friends at Tape Trade, which is hosting our playlist here today for some lossless in-browser quality for anybody in need of private or public playlisting and collaborative audio sharing services. Choose Tape Trade, baby. We have a free link in description, I believe. Free link in description. Go click it. All right. Our first submission for the day comes from our friend Maya. They've written to us a great excuse to get out my pedal board and experiment with some new ideas. I recorded this in my living room with a highly vaulted ceiling and at the time a floor covered with Legos and little wooden animals while I recorded this. The kids were in the other room, but audible at times because it's a small house. This is a segment from a longer recording, which you can find on YouTube if you want. There's more of the whole development of this musical idea, but also some cringe, aka me talking in it, so be warned. I don't know if we're going to hear that in this part, but let's check it out. Coming in from Maya, living room with Looper. You ready?
Yeah.
Let's hit it. right, party people. Give it up for Maya. Lovely, lovely piece we got here. Excerpt. 5.5 minute or so excerpt here. I mean, it's funny because I played that Duval Timothy record in the lobby. And the first track of that is called WhatsApp, and it features all these voice memos from family members that sort of ground the piece in this sort of sentiment, familial, very literal, familial, sort of sentimental way. And to Maya's having, including Maya's children uh, in the other room, very clearly off, slightly in the distance, but very close nearby. I think it makes the piece that much more, and the performance. I want to hear the whole thing later. The performance of something like this, that much more of a grounded work of art in this project, or this prompt here, in that it becomes music for the home.
Mm,
uh the field in this case being the living room with all the chaos and things, and the air conditioner running, the kids running by. It becomes the score for the home in the way which I think grounds it compositionally. I don't know if you had any thoughts on the space in which it was being recorded, and we can get into the guitar playing in a second, but I wanted to start there if you had any thoughts on that.
mhm. I kind of agree that it sounded very domestic. Even the sounds that were going on aside from the little children squealing in the background sounded kind of like just kind of smaller, home like. Mm. I liked it quite a bit. I don't know what else to say. It seems like that had the um it seemed like that was a pretty reverberant space, definitely more than any. My house is very cluttered and definitely wouldn't
Yeah,
sound.
with high ceilings.
So that's kind of interesting. I like when music sounds like the kind of like something specific, the place it's recorded or the experience that was going on, like the activity that was going on while it happened.
Absolutely. I think that was really what I was trying to go for in prompting this here, is that, like, you can't stop the sounds around you outside of the studio or in the field, whether it's your domestic life in the living room, or or outside, uh in a field somewhere. There are elements out of your control,
Mm,
uh and to me, you could fight them or you can work with them. um no, there's not much fighting going on in this.
mm,
This feels very much a part of the space, as if we're watching a vignette, and this is the score for that. um I know someone had mentioned it. I think who had mentioned it in the Breathplay mentioned it in the chat here. I love how this collapses time. It's very grouper. It feels like this goes on forever, whether or not we are listening to it. Yeah, I mean, it has this, again, like, ambient music in, like, the literal Eno sort of definition of it being, like, repetitive and quiet to the point of it being potentially ignored, you know, as if it's just a part of the space installed there. Um, and it had that sort of going for it as well, but also in regards to the sort of grouper reference of, like, her record Ruins was recorded in the living room of, like, an art residency she was at, with the windows open while playing piano and singing single take, and it kind of has this domestic quality to it while also incorporating elements way outside. Um, and it very much sort of brought me there here too. Um, Loving the squeaks of the guitar in the loop as well. Like the further and further it layered, the more and more the harmonics became like the lead element of the instrument, you know? Lovely stuff. Well, thank you, Maya, for starting us off there. Really lovely stuff. We got ourselves a track now from Breath Play. It was written to us here. The field is a bedroom that has that haunting bare walls slapback because I'm subletting and I haven't furnished or decorated it. I'm skipping around my entire music library shuffled on iTunes through monitors while also playing a YouTube video off of my phone and physically moving the phone around the space, as well as triggering my air conditioning unit. I had a bunch of big, heady ideas in mind when developing this piece about, information overload, distraction, content, second strain, Don DeLalo, living in the pod, eating the bugs, etc., etc. But when I started recording, all this theory wouldn't gel properly. In this take, you can hear me realize in real time that what I'm making is something a lot humbler. I've used methods like this while DJing before. Breathplay does a lot of live experimental DJing and dub techno is their sort of main project here. Um, I've used methods like this while DJing before, and from the beginning, I've thought of this work as a DJ set. I have multiple sources of unrelated pre-recorded audio, and I'm manipulating playback to create a dialogue between them. The reward of DJing for me is conveying how I hear things. I've loved whiplash shuffling through large libraries since my teens, and it's played a huge role in shaping my ear as an artist. Using it as a selection method here directly connects my listening to my performance in a way that I can't replicate when DJing the quote traditional way with a prepared playlist. Interesting. So we have a sort of live, speaking again, domestic sound collage performance happening in the fields, in the room for us. All right, you ready? This is a Attention Debt by Breath Play.
And they'll have kids too, reminding us that the fight to keep America decent and free is never over.
This is nothing new. Of course it isn't. Children are a primary mechanism through which political questions are raised, political ideas communicated, political goals achieved. Consider religion, for example. It's actually pretty rare for adults to convert to Christianity, and Christianity loses many more adult members than it gains. It's obvious, then, that Christianity depends on childhood, on the fact that kids are fairly easy to indoctrinate. And I think it's for this reason, at least partly, that among hardcore conservative Christian communities, the process through which children are indoctrinated becomes sacred, all-important. Textbooks must be censored, intelligent design embraced, sex education denied, homeschooling left unregulated. Without these weapons, this kind of Christian faith is genuinely put at risk. Children are largely an uneducated and vulnerable group of people. Adults have authority over them, get to tell them what to do and what to believe, and so in some way they are the ultimate conversations for the sake of political control. You can see this perhaps most obviously in QAnon, the network of conspiratorial beliefs. QAnon is, before anything else, a political movement. Those who advocate for it believe that the Democrats are evil, that there is a tide of degeneracy sweeping the United States, often believe that Jews are in some way responsible for all of this, and that Donald Trump is a strongman hero who will set the world in order. But at the center of this movement, if you want to say there exists a center, is a very simple belief. There's a pedophile ring at the highest echelons of government. The elites are having sex with kids, and the world is designed for them to have sex with kids. Here, children are useful because they are pure, innocent. The mind of a child is precious and vulnerable. To destroy a child is to destroy the world.
This is joy, this is summer. Keep it high. Stay alive. Got your medal on. We're alone. Making sweet love, taking time. Look, God strikes us. That's a pretty fucking fast year flew by. That's a pretty long third gear in this car. Gliding on the fire. The deer run across. Kill the headlights. Pretty fucking underneath moonlight now. Pretty fucking sunrise and sand. Comes the morning hunting us with dreams. Souls the same as far as it used to be. It begins to blur, we get older. Souls not as long as it used to be. Every day comes like crazy. Smoke. Wanna get soaked? Wanna come and take? Wanna speed boat? We smell of Californication. Everything grows in the Congo. Everything grows. Can you call when I call again?
Oh man, it got me laughing that last 2 seconds there. Good work for breath play. Fully loaded us in like that final moment of sincerity, just singing along with Frank Ocean, and then just boom back to the media whiplash. Move on to something completely different musically. Lovely, lovely stuff. And Joseph, I don't know if you realize, like, so this is all one take, one field recording in the room. So they're doing a lot of things very deliberately. It's an act of theater in a way, you know. It's an act of like the room, the field is a stage, and we could hear them turning on the air conditioner, moving the phone from one side of the room to the other. But in my mind, I think very successful in evoking that, like you discussed, being holed up in Boston and feeling cooped up. In this case, compounded with the sort of multiple screens multiple, like talk about a sensory overload, no?
Hmm.
Give us your thoughts from a strictly musical compositional side of things. How much experience you have in the world of tape music, let's say? 'Cause
Um,
this in itself is a work of concrete.
a little bit. I have some. I used to play in kind of a noise project. I used field recordings. I used a turntable a lot. I had like a belt drive turntable that I took the belt out of, so you just put the needle on it and then had to spin the record by hand.
Yeah.
Ran that into like a looper and used it to make weird sound collages and uh it was a lot of fun. I may try to incorporate some of that into some. I've been kind of moving in silence to do big things in this space. Whatever. Eh. That was very it domestic and very very different than the other one. It's such a completely different set of sounds that come from it can come from a living space and a different feeling. I guess a different maybe the high vaulted ceilings are traded in for like a bare. They said a bare walled room and a whole bunch of different stuff. A lot of kind of doom and gloom media there at the beginning, talking about
Yeah.
indoctrinating children. That kind of stuff is constantly. If I were to like record what I was flipping through, it would be a whole bunch of stuff about the same kind of thing.
Does kind of feel like a yin and yang with the first piece too, of
Mm-hmm.
the positives of domesticity, the positives of the interior soundscape and making intentional music within that sort of environment, or at least the home as the field. And this being, I'm not going to say the polar opposite of positive to negative here, but certainly evoking a equally empathetic domestic sound, but on the more cooped up multiple screens going. I think we all can relate to this at one, at some point in our media diet. Hopefully not all the time.
Mm-hmm. And that one, I don't know. I think the second one felt uh, less like a physical space. It was more like kind of psychedelic in the literal sense, like mind manifesting. It felt more like a just inhabiting somebody's consciousness almost while all this is going on.
From the first person perspective, absolutely.
Yeah.
They wrote in the chat here, yeah, I feel a lot of parallels between myself and Joseph sometimes. I am also a sort of southerner grappling with being a sort of incurable stranger to Boston. That's true. That's true. Another southerner in fucking John Hancock's city, my hometown. Uh, I didn't even realize that you lived in Boston, Joseph. I would have had specific questions related to that. But it's a fascinating, it's a different type of noise that, even compared to New York City, it's a different type of vibe. Um, but imagining what you were describing as during COVID, right? When you were in Boston, right?
And right at the first semester, I went to Boston to start a grad school program. And the first semester I was there is when Donald Trump got elected for during
Oof.
his term. So I went through all of that and the COVID shut down, and like
Yeah.
it was a rough few years. But during COVID, definitely, I think I was about losing my mind. I was looking at some of the videos. I never mind. I shouldn't mention the videos I posted because I'm afraid somebody else is going to go look at them. Please don't do that. Don't scroll through my Instagram and look at my 2020.
No, no.
Some of that up. But yeah,
No, no.
feeling of just being like really shut in there at the beginning of the COVID pandemic when everybody was, I didn't know what was happening. Remember going to the post office, I think was the first time I went out, like during it, and they had the tape on the floor to like keep 6 feet
Yep.
apart and everything. So
Yep.
that yeah, kind of claustrophobic feeling and just feeling like I was being uh, just kind of oscillating between all the kind of doom media stuff and watching like Chinese fantasy like period drama thing. For some reason, just watched so many of those that they all blur together with all
Incredible.
that costume stuff.
Yeah.
They're like trying to get stuff out by the barrel full.
Wow.
Maybe a more specific COVID experience of.
These would be your sounds if
Mhm.
you were to take Breath Play's framework for their composition and apply it to your Boston interior experience. It would have more Peking opera or something involved.
Mhm.
Oh man. Breathplay saying they saw you perform at non-event last year. Oh, I love non-event. It was remarkable and made me think a lot of home in Georgia. I really appreciate that remark about entering someone's consciousness. That's exactly what I was going for, and it means I've
Mhm.
successfully connected this assignment to my larger practice. There we go.
That's good.
That's right. And James Downey also here. Another bot. We are filled with mass holes. New England does. New England does. I can't escape my heritage.
Mm.
Well, thank you, Breathplay, for bringing us directly into your consciousness through this piece of audio theater. Fantastic. All right. We have two more to listen to today. First up, we have from Terrence. They've written to us. My submission for today is the track at the link. Track names is Rooftop Cloister. I uploaded two cuts. We're going to listen to the 5 cut version, 5 minute version. This piece is one of over a dozen recordings I took on my rooftop in my little apartment building in Brooklyn once a week from March to June 2020. Speaking of COVID,
Mm.
speaking of lockdown music, fully, fully embracing that, it's seeming like. This practice was one of the most important ways I dealt emotionally with the circumstances of the time. I'd like to set up a couple. I'd set up a couple folding chairs with my microphone on the other, sit with the sounds of the environment for a bit and play. First couple of weeks were unusually quiet for where my building was located, normally very busy Fourth Avenue. So rather than engine noise being constant, it was very occasional. I particularly enjoyed that respite from the traffic noises and playing with the bird sounds. This first recording was originally about 13 and a half minutes long, which is pretty characteristic of how long I usually play in these sessions. Having originally released all these recordings in full length, unedited, I'm currently in the process, with the assistance of Max, shout outs to Max. Yeah, Terrence is one of my private students, of editing down all the recordings in the interests of brevity and accessibility so as to release the project as a more thoroughly considered multimedia work, including some written reflections, as well as a selection of film photography I shot at the time. Terrence, I wish you could include some links to that here. We'd love to see some of the what you're describing as well as hear it. In the OG release, I described the work as simply as possible meditations on this forced monasticism. Nice. All right, so we are going to hear an excerpt from the Rooftop Cloister series for 2020. All right. Oh yeah. Lovely stuff from Terrence. God, I am obsessed with the hum. Um that nondescript hum at the end, but the context that Terrence provided us really grounds us in this longing for more human activity, just knowing that this is the middle of Brooklyn off the BQE by the highway and how abysmally quiet it is. I don't want to get into arguments with acoustic ecologists about why noise can be a good thing, but I think socially noise is absolutely indicative of humanity, uh, maybe not needing for a overabundance of industrial noise at all times, but um, I am an advocate for people making sound to reach out socially. Um, I wish we could have paired this with the visuals. I've seen some of the footage of this, but I think it's a stark sort of contrast of closeness and cleanliness of the sound, considering how outside it really is. It's on the roof, in Brooklyn. And one would just expect that to be infinitely more activity occurring beyond the roof itself, and how there really isn't any. So it does paint a story, or it does paint a picture. It tells a story, you know. Um, I would love to hear your thoughts, Joseph, just from guitarist's perspective here. This being the most straightforward uh, single, unaccompanied guitar performance that we've heard tonight.
Mm-hmm. Um, it was very kind of sparse, and if somebody would, I would never would have guessed that that was recorded in Brooklyn. I think that's what somebody else here said.
Yeah.
I like the I kind of like the sparseness of it. I guess it's an interesting, like I don't know, maybe an interesting environment for that kind of thing to happen in, and that kind of like discernible but not really like overwhelming background noise, and then at the end just kind of pushing that up to like accentuate maybe how little was really going on in the background, but making that almost oppressive. I thought was kind of interesting.
Mm. It's like
Hmm.
putting a magnifying glass on it towards
Hmm.
the very end, you know?
Well, I kind of like the quiet, and I live in a place where there's not a whole lot of human noise, and there's like cars and stuff going by, and that's about it. It's not the same as like people talking or like kids playing somewhere or something. I always like there was a little playground across the street from where I lived in Boston, and there was a daycare not far down the road, and there would always be a lot of kids around. And of course, I'm not going to go being a single male person with a mustache. I'm not going to go sit around like a park to make field. That like that kind of sound though is very different than like just people driving trucks and stuff around, which is a kind of human noise I hear around here a lot.
Yeah.
Huh. I don't know. There may be. I don't know if it's good for me or bad for me or good for someone else or bad for somebody else to be around, like to be in an urban place versus a rural place, or what kinds of. Like you mentioned the. I think you used the word industrial, like the industrial noise. I've been like building that guitar kind of got me interested in looking like reading some books on woodworking and like some classic texts on tools and all kinds of stuff, and just thinking about how different things sounded before the industrial revolution. I'm sure how different the world sounded.
Right.
Like there were no engines or anything. Like when people were making stuff, you might hear hammering or like planing wood or like hand sawing. And I don't know how
Yeah.
different that would be. Probably more like it is out here. Or I don't know if
Yeah.
it changed nearly as much here as they have in a lot of places.
We had the sound artist and composer Lawrence English as one of our monthly project presenters a
Mm,
few months ago, and he was talking about the hum, as I described it, as that sort of nondescript uh, urban sort of hum that might be traffic in the distance, might be amalgamation of many things. And he's obsessed with it as well, but he's saying, we're gonna lose that. We're gonna lose the sounds of cars with gas engines as more and more EVs are adopted. And I don't know how many electric vehicles you're hearing where you are, but the sound of those engines, they have that particular like oh, kind of like open mouth sort of harmonic drone to them. You ever heard that before? They're
yeah.
very odd sound. And he and I both agree that like if we're gonna have noise pollution, I would still rather hear the good old fashioned cylinder engine amalgamated hum versus this like bizarre, equally technophonous sort of battery hum. It's just a fascinating sort of question of like, at what stage of what was the noise floor sounding like at various stages of industry in this country or in the world.
Hmm.
Um, pre tractor uh agricultural industrial noise versus post, you know, and urbanized environments that were equally very much human urban environments pre automobile versus post, these are all very interesting questions that I think the act of field recording sort of brings up, no?
Hmm.
I'm curious though. You're talking about, you hear the sounds of trucks and cars driving by, but not the sound of people outside of these large machines, right? Um, that must be a very fascinating contrast for you, being that you don't get a lot of foot traffic where you are. So those, in a very much natural environment, those sounds of trucks, I'm imagining like kind of mountain road haulers,
Hmm.
not in the hauler of the neighborhood sense, but I mean like, like hauling uh lumber or things like that, big trucks. What that must just cut through like a knife, no, and that in the soundscape.
It does. If I were to share some field recordings that I've made, especially on like a Zoom recorder instead of my phone, something that can pick up lower frequencies more, like it is very, very pronounced when a truck, like a car or something goes by, even if it's not that close. Like you
Right.
just hear the rumble. There's almost always something. You hear some kind of machine or like a plane or something. You hear something up in the sky,
Mm,
and I'm always trying to I don't know, I'm trying to get away from that or something. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should. But I don't know what
it's
you said.
hard.
It made me. I don't know. It made me realize like being around that kind of noise, but not ever like people talking or doing anything. I don't have much interaction with people at all, and it's probably bad. I would say that's bad for me. I think that'd be bad for anybody.
Yeah.
It's very different than like the field recordings I made in Boston of being like in the subway, like using the subway. There's a guy that has like for years been playing the erhu, the little
Yeah.
Chinese oud, and he's I don't know if he's not very good or if his instrument's not very good. It's very like screechy, this real loud like screechy sound. But like that kind of sound and people talking and trains and street performers and construction stuff and then like drivers being mad at each other, which happens all the time in Boston. You hear people yelling and honking horns. There's all that kind of stuff. It's not just like there's this big loud thing cutting through in the distance. That's like the only human engagement I have, or just about it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's just a really fascinating conversation here. Sound studies, sort of noise studies here on the sort of social implications of noise versus antisocial, right? Like this in the case of a an 18 wheeler driving through your neck of the woods, or even just a car, the one car you're going to hear all hour. um it's not like that's a person you're going to interact with in any case, versus in the city you have to be interacting with these sounds, you have to be interacting with these people, there's no escaping from it, you know for better or worse. um it's a fascinating sort of contrast here. I don't have any answers for it. I just think it's a fascinating sort of dichotomy of noise studies, and ultimately how we interact with them, both as just people living in these environments, but then when we're actively trying to record, like you said, like, are you trying to escape these low hums? But how can we? It's right above you. You get into this question with a lot of insufferable acoustic ecologists that say you gotta just like get as far away and into nature as possible. And I'm just like, but yeah, even when I'm there, there's a plane above. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
you become like me, or you're just in danger of kind of losing yourself, or like completely vanishing into it or something.
right.
Humanity, we're not supposed to exist alone. As much as people have fantasies, like was it
Mm-hmm.
Chris DeCandless, Sand to the Wild guy, went
Yep.
out
Yep.
in the Alaska
Yep.
wilderness, and people have fantasies like that. That I think that's kind of dumb. That's not how, we didn't evolve to survive on our own at all. We don't
Yep.
have claws or teeth or very good speed or eyesight or smell, or we can't fly or swim that well compared to any number of other things. And the way that we have survived as long as we have is that we were able to cooperate. We evolved language so that we could communicate with each other and share very detailed information with each other. So I don't know. I think probably this is not a good setting. I like how that last piece, just that little thing at the end, like just accentuating that kind of that's that like sparked this whole
Yeah.
conversation. And now we're talking about
Love it.
evolution and being
This
schizoid
is
and
this is this is the
whatever.
power of noise, the power of field recording, man. What can I say? I live for these things. I live for this discourse, bro. All right, it looks like we have one more. Thank you, Terrence. We got one more for this evening. Oh, it looks we have two more. You got time for two? You have time for two, Joseph? You okay with
Yeah,
that?
I do. That's fine.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. I will add that other one in here real quick while we upload. From Kareem. Kareem wrote, multi-mic'd hang with the birds. This is a layered field recording of the same guitar performance from different distances on a very noisy roof with a lot of weird reflections due to the mic setups. There's also a delay line because of course there is. This was a ton of fun, even if I feel like it's not my strongest work by a long shot. The birds wouldn't get as close as I had hoped, so I felt a little aimless on the guitar, but it was so much fun to do this, and the result feels very textual, which I'm stoked about. Guitar meditations from far away through a sea of wet noise. Enjoy. All right. Hold on, let me get this on here. Roof Square from Kareem. Let's go. Very nice. Very good stuff from Kareem playing us out. It seems like we had good pairings here. The first two were domestic yin and yangs of sorts, and these two were rooftop guitar interactions with the field yin and yangs. The first one from Terrence being sort of singular, clean, up close guitar with this distance of air and hum, and this being polar opposite with the reflections of the various sort of recording apparatuses and the hum and air and the birds sort of being just as much a lead component of this as the guitar itself, you know. Looks like, by the way, the Poverty Fetish piece was accidentally submitted for this project when they just wanted to submit for standard Monday streams. So this was our last one for today, Joseph. No more after this. Good stuff from Kareem. I'm curious your thoughts on this, having just heard the first one and what I was describing here, the sort of pairing of yin and yangs, the first two and now these two, comparing this to the previous one of rooftop guitar field works.
Mm. I don't know what to add to it other than what you kind of already said what I was going to say.
I'm sorry.
So, useless, sir. But
No, no, I blab too much. Please,
you're
please.
right about the like all the different recording things. Is that I'm assuming that's why all the like all of that sound was there. It was like the guitar was almost buried in all the different kind of stuff, as opposed to like you mentioned, the very up close,
Hmm.
kind of intimate, like quiet, uh, thing in the previous one. That was interesting. The only times I've accidentally gotten like weird phasing issues when I've tried to use like more than one mic. It's never been interesting. And I've heard tell of people in studios that have accidentally ended up like knocking a microphone out of position and something strange happened with like phase cancellation or something.
Yeah,
It was useful.
yeah.
I don't know much about that. I'm not an acoustic engineer or acoustic ecologist.
They Kareem wrote, yes, the mics were across like 30 square feet of weird roofing. So I was trying to capture a lot of these little sound tunnels. Um, that I think is very clear here is
Mhm.
distance. You know, that's how I felt in comparison the previous guitar piece to this one is just the distance of it all, you know, or rather proximity versus distance. Um, He wrote, I often find myself trying to play anharmonically with the city hum around here, the center city, Philadelphia, specifically in this case. This also being during a active moment in the city's history and not uh early pandemic as Terrence captured, you know. So it's really fascinating even without doing too much, this stark contrast and noise pollution, even just in hum without any specific horns or cars driving by, just kind of the air, you know.
Mhm.
Maya wrote here earlier in the chat, it's interesting how this assignment sort of necessitates all of us to tape capturing to tape moments of our own isolation. I'm able to do it during nap time, but everyone's isolation is their own. Yeah, but to me, it's like that isolation isn't necessarily a bad thing. We are alone while making these pieces, you know, but to me, I think uh, everything sort of evokes, a different context. You know, these are all vignettes, personal vignettes on specific days. That's kind of why I wanted to assign it, you know, and why Joseph, you inspired so much of it of just by me actively deep listening through the phone, sort of this pairing of your acoustic guitar works or outdoor performances with your environment. But that's just yours, you
Yeah,
know?
that. I think most of what I share on Instagram comes across as a little like idyllic or like a kind of,
Mm,
this natural world and finding, like kind of trying to meld into the flowing of the river or the chirping of the birds or something. But I'm working on an album right now that I've used quite a few field recordings of, and
oh,
I'm
nice.
kind of the in the away from that, like some of the more um, maybe oppressive aspects of living in a place where I have as much history as I do. This house I just moved into last year, and it was just built, and it's kind of small and right in front of the house that I had been living in, which is behind here, that my
Mm,
great grandparents built.
wow.
So I was living in a house uh, that I was at 100 and maybe 117 years old now is when they built it. And
Wow.
on one of the pieces I'm working on right now, like I walked through the house with a field recorder, and it sounds like a haunted house, and there's like all this sound going on, and everything just feel. It was kind of late and like maybe right at dusk, and you hear like the creaking of the floor, and you just get this sense of unease. It's almost like being in a nightmare or something. I kind of looped parts of it, so it's almost like you're going out of a room and then ending up in the same room and trying to go out of it. And there's the sound of the crickets back behind my house, which are very, very loud. There's like the woods are just right back there.
Yeah.
And I don't go there after dark. I spend all this time like posting these videos, but at night, like we've had dogs. People just drive out in the country and leave dogs all the time.
Oh God, they did that in Puerto
On
Rico. I used to live in Puerto Rico, and that happened all the time. It was
Yeah,
awful.
I hate that. But they'll just like disappear sometimes, and I will never will like have had a dog out here for years, and then they'll just be gone all of a sudden.
Wow.
And it can be kind of scary. The coyotes, you hear them. I've actually used recordings of the coyotes. I live down in a valley, and when they just sometimes surround it and start kind of making their sounds. So there are a lot of kind of frightening sounds out here
Yeah.
too. I don't remember why I started talking about
Well,
all.
just talking about this idyllic sort of pristine or presentable sort of version of the field that you're performing in versus
Mhm.
what you're not necessarily showing. But it sounds like we're going to get some of that on your upcoming record, which I'm sounds very aligned with what we've been discussing all evening today.
Hmm.
When's that coming out?
I don't know. I'm still.
Still working on it. Got a
Uh,
title for it?
uh, I do. I think I'm going to call it ossuary. Like
Yeah.
I took some pictures. I went to Europe last year for the first time I'd ever been there. I did some shows with a friend of mine who lives in Switzerland, and he
Hmm.
uses a lot of tapes and field recordings and stuff. Son of Buzzy, not Bussy, but Buzzy, Buzzi.
Yeah.
Uh, and we played a show in Brno in the Czech Republic, and there's like a old medieval ossuary, and you go down there, and there's just human bones all over the place. And I'm thinking this album is, I don't know, trying to clear my mind a little bit and to get into some darker corners. I've been doing a lot of kind of idyllic or pastoral stuff, and I'm not feeling like doing that right now.
Yeah. Well, I want to hear the haunted house. I want to hear this walking through the house. I want to hear the creaks in the walls and things. Um, Joseph, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on this afternoon and hearing your thoughts and getting to know you a bit more on your background and what makes you tick musically and also fantastic words of wisdom and feedback you've given folks. while listening in with me live this evening. Um, Thank you so much for coming on, man. I really do appreciate it. I know the folks here do as well.
Well, thank you for inviting me and for everybody for sharing stuff. I
Yeah,
enjoyed listening to it. I'm not sure if I contributed that much to the conversation, but I like trying it.
you've absolutely did, man. Just having you on, chiming in, really lovely. You
Yeah.
know, I'm a man of many words. You're one of lesser, not few,
Hmm.
but lesser than me, but of wisdom nonetheless. Joseph Allred, everybody. Thank you so much, Joseph. I'll absolutely send you the link to this when it's up on the pod and whatnot. And it's going to be just audio only when we post this. So don't worry about that. But thanks again, man. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your July, and I hope we meet up again soon to play another show. You're welcome up here anytime if you're trying to play up north. Hey,
Mhm.
kitty.
Cat.
Hey, kitty. Yeah, I had both my dog and my cat in here at one point bothering me during here. I think my dog actually broke in to eat my cat's food. So that's always good. I gotta go deal with that now. All right, Joseph. Have a wonderful evening.
All right, you too.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye bye. Thank you for listening to another edition of Group Critique Fight Club with me, Max Alper, aka Parrotsky. You can sign up for the Patreon at patreon.com/Parrotsky to get access to our Sunday Zoom school on top of the regular live public stream. Public stream takes place every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. All are welcome. And you are listening to the track Atop Alp Dog Mountain, Ja Plays Pokemon Go by me.